Welcome to this video where I'm going to go through the B2B protocol and the third version and iteration of it. My name is Harold Royne. I'm the CEO and founder of Bureau Ventures, and I've been the one that has created this during the past decade plus. A bit of background on that. What you see on the screen now is the quote unquote spider web version of the B2B protocol. It is covering all of the teeny tiny details and the nuance, and it's a flowchart version of this. I'm gonna show you another version of this in this video as well, but I want to try to keep this prompt. I'm gonna down below this video, gonna give you the link to this flowchart and to this whiteboard so that you can go in and click around and see how different things work. We're also going to attach additional resources and things you can go into because we have other resources about outbound, about inbound, about creating resources, and so on. So let's get into it. So the B2B protocol consists of, you could say, lead generation, lead nurturing, and lead conversion. So what you see here are activities and setups that you build to generate leads. The first way is outbound, and that goes into how you reach out to a particular audience. And the thing that we typically recommend is doing outbound on LinkedIn. So basically connection requests and follow-up messages. The second here is a follow-up, and that is basically of everyone you have in your outbound campaign. If they do not connect, if they do not respond, what do you take them through? And that's where we have the follow-up. And then you have the inbound. And this is about what type of content can you post, and for us, particularly on LinkedIn, to drive inbound lead flow. The inbound lead flow is something that we did in 2025 and generated 65,000 leads that are qualified in the B2B space. So it works. And those are the three mechanisms that we use to drive lead flow, drive pipeline growth, and also drive demand. The important aspect of all of these are that resources are kind of like the beating heart in everything. So when you reach out on LinkedIn, you want that to direct to a resource. When you post content on LinkedIn, you want that to direct to a resource. When you follow up with someone, you want that to direct to a resource. That is the core mechanism behind all of this. Now, it is the resource's purpose and objective to get people to book a call. And that is why we have a booking system. So this entire piece here is a booking system. And there are a couple of pieces to it. So at high level, people, you need to have a booking calendar. And what I see a lot of companies fail at, even when they have a booking calendar, is that they just have a calendar and a thank you message. The calendar should collect information, and they should be redirected to a confirmation page where you show them and convey more things to them. Because then, after they've booked, you have their full attention. Now, the second part of the booking system is a no-show system. Because if you do a lot of digital meetings, you will have a no-show rate. And what do you do with those? Now, you then have how we generate the leads. The purpose is to send them to the resource. The resource is supposed to book them, and you have a way to follow up when they do not show. This is where we are getting the nurture component in, because this is the thing that most companies never have. Like, I would say and make the claim that of the thousands of companies that I've consulted in the past decade, less than 5% have had this in place. And there's two components to this. You have email and you have ads. And basically the core idea behind the evergreen retargeting, or the nurturing of leads, is that you have a series of content that you send and market to the leads that you've generated, and all of them go back to a resource. So whenever a lead is generated, we enroll them into the retargeting and nurture. The retargeting and nurture happens on email and on ads. And the purpose of those is to send people to the resource so that they go back into the booking system, so that they go into your pipeline and you generate revenue. It's a fairly simple thing. However, what most people do is that they forget one core component that we have in place. So the evergreen retargeting is a sequence of 20 plus pieces of content. When people get to the very end, they loop back and start receiving the first ones again. Now, through this, we're able to do a couple of things. We're able to auto segment, auto score, and ensure that we can bucket the leads we have based on engagement level, based on trust, and who's actually active, which makes it easy for us to, let's say, add pings to the sales teams so that they can follow up the leads that are appropriate to follow up and with appropriate timing. So that was the 5 minute quick macro overview. Now let's go into the different pieces. So I like to say that outbound is something you, in almost any and all cases, should run for your company if you have a very specific B2B target audience. If you can define the industry, the key decision maker, and we can do that on LinkedIn, amazing, outbound works. And how this works is that we always start by checking if the prospect list that you've defined through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, through external scraping, whatever strategy you use to find them, we check if they're connected. If they're not connected, we send an invite. There are a lot of ways of doing this. A lot of companies do an invite on LinkedIn with a note, adding a connection request note. Typically that worked back in 2016, 17, and 18 when this was a new strategy. But now in 2026, it's not a new strategy anymore. And people know about it. So just leave that blank. Then what we do is that we check if they have accepted within the first 5 days. If they have not accepted in the first 5 days, we're able to add in the export of those leads to then enroll them into the follow-up. We visit their profile, we like their post, and then we check if they have accepted in the next 2 weeks. If they have not, we visit their profile another time and we check another 14 days later. And if they have not accepted, then we end it by withdrawing that connection request. The reason why we withdraw that connection request is because if you have a ton of outstanding connection requests on your LinkedIn account, that is one potential warning sign to LinkedIn that you are spamming. Now, if they at some point connect, we give them tag connect, and then we start sending messages. And here you have the first message, second message, and third message. There are a lot of ways of doing this. This has changed in the past 10 years since I started doing this explicitly on LinkedIn. The one way is the pitch. That is the one that most people do. Everyone gets them, everyone hates them. Please do not use it and do go with that one. The second one is the question. And this is where you actually ask a genuine question. You ask what's up in their company, like what's the current focus. You actually try to genuinely build a relationship. And a question could be invited to that. A question could be done in a couple of different ways. You could ask the open question, which is kind of like the relationship building one. You can ask the rhetorical question. I'm just going to call that the R question. That would, for example, for me and Bureau, that could, for example, be like, so would generating more leads and pipeline be of interest currently for your company? Of course, it becomes a rhetorical question because everyone wants to answer yes. And that's the typical two that you can go with question. Questions, however, is something that people have exploited. And what they end up doing is that once they get the reply, they basically go directly back into pitching. So please do not do that. The third way of doing the message one is actually the value drop. So remember how I in the beginning said that all lead generation tactics are meant to lead to a resource? That is basically what it is. You basically give them a resource. Now, message two can be done in two ways. You can do the follow-up, kind of like referring back to the question you asked, refer to the resource you asked, Or you can do another value drop. The third message is kind of like it's free for you to do how you want to do them. How I typically do these is that I do a value drop in message 1, I do a follow-up question in message 2, and then I do a final value drop in message 3. And I just like, hey, I just wanted to leave you this resource because I thought it might be relevant, because that was one of the things that we uncovered working with a lot of similar type of companies. So there are a lot of ways of doing this, but this is the core process behind it. I'm actually going to leave these on here. So that's outbound. Now, follow up is very, very similar. So, follow up is basically you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, they did not connect, let's send them emails. So, in between, of course, you need to have an email enrichment to find their email, verify that the email that they have is correct. And how we do this is on LinkedIn, we want to send people resources. We basically emulate and do the same thing here. So this is just like super complex, but basically it is like we're not connected on LinkedIn, so they do not have the tag connected, and then we send an email, and then we wait. If they reply, amazing, we're in dialogue on email. If they haven't replied, we check again in a week and in another week. So the essence here is that the email 1 is kind of like going like this. Hey John, I tried to connect with you on LinkedIn because I wanted to share something with you. Is this the appropriate email to share that with you? And that's that. You ask for permission. And you refer to you actually trying to reach out on LinkedIn, because what that does is that has a likelihood of them going to LinkedIn, checking for a connection request, and then they see you. You also want in your emails, in the follow-up, to actually link your LinkedIn profile so that they can go and click your profile, see that you've submitted it, and then they will enroll into the campaign that you do run outbound on LinkedIn. So you send that as a first email, then we wait, and it's probably like 4 to 7 days. If they haven't replied and we're not connected on LinkedIn, that's when we send email 2, and that's where you actually send the first value. So that's when you would then send the value drop that you would send in message 1. That is what you send in message 2. Now, the way that email typically goes is like, hey John, I assume this is the right email. The thing that I wanted to send you on LinkedIn was this. I wanted to pass it by you because X, Y, and Z. Here you go. Hope you find value in it. And that's that. Now, we add in 10 to 14 days additional delay, and it still checks if they replied on email or connected on LinkedIn. If they're not, we send email 3. And that's when you would potentially send the value drop or the resource that you either send a message 2 or message 3. So that way, you kind of send the same thing, but instead of using LinkedIn as the channel to reach out, you use email. But it's not a fully cold email, it's a follow-up because you're referring to you wanting to connect with them on LinkedIn. So it's a different psychology behind it, and it's also perceived in a different way, and not like you just coldly spamming someone. You're always referring to LinkedIn. Hey, I wanted to send this to your LinkedIn. You have an outstanding connection request from me, and that. Now, if and when you're done with everything, you want to ensure that you follow up. And this is where everyone you have 3 options. You can enroll everyone in the nurture, so the evergreen. You can enroll all of those that open the email, and you can all enroll those that click the email. And that would be the link to your profile, link to the resource, whatever it is. Now, if they reply, of course, amazing. You are in dialogue on email. So that's a follow-up. You can see the follow-up as kind of like trying to send over the things that you would do on LinkedIn, but on email. The core thing I want to make sure that I emphasize is that the purpose of follow-up and purpose of outbound is solely to get the connection to generate the lead and start providing value. It is not meant to convert to a meeting. It's not meant to squeeze the lemon. It's not meant to be a pitch fest. It's meant to connect and provide something of value. Because when you provide something of value, we are then able to take that lead and add it into the nurture. Or through the value, they go to the resource, and through the resource, they book a meeting, like I showed in the beginning. Now, inbound is a bit differently because you need a resource to be able to do this. And the way we typically do this is that we do a post on LinkedIn. that has a comment call to action. CTA is a call to action. So it's like comment B2B to get this on DM. This video is a resource that we post on LinkedIn, and the reason why you're here is most likely because you commented on something that we have on LinkedIn. So it's the same thing. In here, we use a tool called LeadShark to automate and extract the comments, but also reply to everyone and ensure that everyone gets what they're promised on DM. And now we send all of that into what we have as a self-hosted backend system to store all the comments, store all the leads, link them to the posts, and ensure that we have all of that stored. This is one of the things that I see most companies trying to do inbound on LinkedIn forget. They use tools like LeadShark to ensure that everyone gets what they were promised, but they don't have a good lead system in terms of how to store the leads, how to enrich the leads, how to ensure that you can bring those leads into the next pod. And the reason for this is because this is far more technical than just creating resources and posting about them and automating and ensuring that everyone gets the comment and get the resource. This requires more technical knowledge. Now, once this system has extracted everyone that comments, we've found the lead, we've enriched the leads, that is when we again add them to the nurturing and the follow-up. So of course, when they comment, they are going to get the resource, and then through the resource, they are going to book a meeting. Now, resources are a bit interesting because through the resources, you are able to track who does what. So you're able to track who viewed, who booked, but the resources, how you approach them. And this is going to be probably a masterclass that no one really has shared because this is the layer that I haven't heard anyone talk about in the 10 years of me doing this. You have a couple of layers to creating resources. You have your topics. For us, for example, that's lead gen, lead nurture, and lead conversion. Under topics, you have you call it the format of value. And with format of value, I mean three things. So there are three ways that we can see this. And this has changed. Like 10 years ago, this was completely different. So in the beginning of me doing this, all the way back in 2011, information was the key thing. So information was valuable. However, that has changed because information is abundant today. But that's one level. And that is more like teach someone something. It's a how-to guides, it's the step-by-steps, it's these things. The next layer of what makes something valuable is implementation. Because if you take the info and you actually implement it, you get something from the information instead of just learning. And then the final one is that you actually get an output. And that is like you've implemented something, you've done something, you've done an action, and you get an output. So when you want to look at, okay, what type of content and resources can I create? You want to have your educational ones. You want to have the things that help them implement. You want to have the things that help them do things. This video is info. You have guides. You have tutorials. Implementation could be prompts or checklists. Checklist, I would rather say. And templates. It's the things that speed up the implementation. And then you have the output, and there you have tools. You have prompts. You have a lot of different things. So these are like you have your core topics, and then you think about, I need to have information, I need to have implementation content, and I need to have output content. So I need to have video guides, checklists, templates, tools, and prompts. And there you have your matrix. Now, there is an additional layer below this, and that is length. If you have a very, very specific audience, they have limited time. You don't want to bring them into like a 45-minute almost PhD in your video. Again, I see this video is now at 20 minutes, so it's starting to get a bit lengthy, but there's a lot of things to cover, and I could split this up into several pieces. But length is one. You want to have short content, you want to have long content. And then you have the final thing, and that is, you could call it just a format. Because all of these could just be written. All of these could have a video in it. All of these could have different things. So you have these layers that basically helps you create your matrix for what type of resources you can create. I can create a video on how to do outbound lead generation. I can create a video on how to do lead nurturing. I can do a video on how to do lead conversion. I can create a written guide for all of them. I can create a checklist for all of them. I can create a template for all of them. I can create a tool to help you with everything. And I can create prompts for everything. And if I do that and just have those two for all of these, I have 6 times 3. So I have already 18 resources that I can create. Now, if I want to split it and I want to have shorter ones and I want to have longer ones, let's say shorter ones are max 10 minutes and longer ones can go up to 30, 35, 40, then I have 36 resources that I can create. So it just becomes your map of what are the things that you can create to help you get your library of resources done. Now, that was a bit of more of a deep dive than planned, but I think this is super essential because no one talks about this when it comes to resources. Everyone talks about lead magnets, but no one gives you kind of like the proper map and matrix for how do you create them. Now, that's the resources. Now, at this point, we've covered the outbound, the follow-up, the inbound, and resources. Now, how does the evergreen work? Because I think this is a integral part that almost no one has. And due to that, it might be a bit new. So there's a couple of things to this. We have our emails, and we have our ads, and we have our auto scoring. And as mentioned, the core concept here is that we have a sequence of content. If you have 10 resources, if you have 20 resources, you have 20 emails, you have 20 ads. And the core idea is that when people get to the end, they loop back. So how that works on email is that this is also tailored to the engagement level of the leads we have. So we have 3 buckets. We have the cold, warm, and hot segments. And all the leads that you generate through outbound, inbound, etc., they will fall into one of these 3 segments because they get points, they lose points based on activity, tasks, engagement, and what they do. So the entire email nurturing and evergreen starts by checking if in what segment they're in. And the thing that the segment does is that it changes the cadence and frequency of how often people get an email. So if they're in cold, they get it every 7 days, every 5 days in warm, or every second day in hot. So there's a delay that changes. And this works a bit like Alice in Wonderland. Like if she is thinking about the rabbit hole, going down into rabbit hole, she really dives in. We want to reward that. So if you show interest, we want to kind of like have that pulling mechanism of dragging you down into the rabbit hole. If you stop engaging, you want to just, of course, bring you out of it. So it's kind of like we accelerate you if you show engagement. Now, we send an email and we track the activity. So open, click, reply, page visit, all these different things. And then we ensure that people can't get the same email in 30 days, just as a security measure. Now, then we go to the next, we check what segment they're in, and then this basically loops until we have 20 of these. If we have 20 more or more and they're in cold, it's like 20 weeks before they get all of them and they don't really remember it. And that's when it repeats and go back to the beginning. We can, of course, have more than 20. And also, if they are in the hot segment, they start getting these very, very aggressively. But that's why we have the quarantine, ensuring that people can't get the same email in 30 days. Or twice in the same in a span of 30 days. So that's the emails. Then you have the retargeting ads. And this is probably one of the very, very interesting things, because if you run a fairly, let's say, not super, super aggressive lead generation campaign, you're probably going to have between 1,000 and 10K leads usually. Of course, there are exceptions to this. For example, we generated 65,000 leads, so it's a bit of a different case. But when you start this for the very first time, this is something that you could probably run on Meta with a $5, maybe $10 a day in ad budget. And there's a couple of reasons for it. This is not going to replace your paid ads. This is going to be something that you stay aware. You show your ads to someone. And what we have here is that we have one campaign with that budget that needs to be changed depending on the audience, of course. And we have 3 ad groups. We have one ad group for the cold segment, we have one for the warm, and one for the hot. And this is where, depending on what segment someone is in, the frequency of how often they can get the ad changes. So if they're in cold, they can get once a day. If they're in warm, they can get maybe 2 to 5 a day. And if they're in hot, they can get it all the way up to 10. And this is where, depending on your lead count, we need to change the budget. But the interesting thing here is that all of these have exactly the same ads. So if you have 10 resources, we can add 10 ads, but I would prefer to add 20 so that you have 2 ads per resource. If you have more than 10 resources, you have 20 resources, of course you will have more ads. But basically this emulates what they get on email, but it is just on retargeting ads. And what we recommend here is doing this on Meta because it's far cheaper than anywhere else. And also there's a one-to-one sync between the system we use for email and ads, so it's hands-off. Now the final thing here is auto scoring, and this is basically where I to some degree covered it already. You have the cold, warm, and hot segments, and it depends on the points people have. And when they enter cold, they get that tag, and we remove the other ones, and it syncs to the Facebook or Meta custom audience, so that it automatically syncs to the retargeting ads. Now this compounds over time. This teaches you more about your audience. It teaches you more about the segments. It gives you a snapshot of the engagement level, and it is also allowing you to gauge whether they trust you as a company or not. Now, all of this is to lead people to book a meeting because we want to build pipeline. However, we don't want to force people into pipeline. That's why everything goes through a resource. Now, the booking system is divided into a couple of things. So you have the post-booking, and that is basically you want to send a confirmation email and confirmation text. And this is where you want to do 2 things. One, you want to send them to a thank you page, like a custom thank you page with preferably a video of you or the sales representative that are going to take the call. If you have a whole sales team, of course, it's going to be you or some sort of manager that is responsible. But that's one. The second thing you want to do is that you want to give them homework. One thing that we always do across clients in the Pendo industry is that we create a questionnaire to ask more questions of the prospect before the call. This is quote unquote becomes their homework. And what we can do is that we can gauge more about their company based on the submission, but also if they do not submit it, the likelihood of them showing for a call is far lower than if they actually did it. Because if they did it, they invested time and they are actually going to go through it. Now, before the meeting, you want to send more emails. And these are emails that basically educate the audience. It builds trust. It shows authority. It ensures that they understand that you are someone that are credible and you know what you're talking about. Then you have your 1 day and 1 hour before reminders. And now the question is, what happens if they cancel? If they cancel, you want to sync that. And you want to enroll them into the nurture. If the meeting was rescheduled, you just want to ensure that the follow-up emails are not spammed or sent in an inappropriate time schedule. And then what happens after meeting? If the meeting was completed, amazing. The question was, did you book meeting 2? If you book meeting 2, you have another booking calendar for that. If you didn't, is it marked as lost? Okay, yes, then it's end. If it's not marked as lost, you enroll them back into the evergreen sequence. Now, if the meeting wasn't completed, we enroll them into the no-show system. And the no-show system is a bit of an interesting thing because we use content as one way to nurture them. So the first thing, we send them a no-show email. Like, hey John, we were supposed to have a meeting 10 minutes ago, but I assume something got in the way. Here's the link to find a time to reschedule, or find another time for us to do the call. That's one way. Another way is not to give them the link, just ask them a question whether they are still interested. And if they reply, you're in dialogue and email, then you can book. If they do not reply, one of the things that we do is that we have 5 videos. These 5 videos or content is something that we send in the before meeting is to be completed. What we do is that we then can check whether they watched the different videos, and if they haven't watched video 1, we send an email for that. If they have watched that, we check if they watched video 2, if not, send that, and so on. And what this does is that these are educational videos that are meant to ensure that leads that book a meeting are as warm as possible when they get on the call. This could be case studies, it could be proof, it could be more methodology walkthroughs, strategy walkthroughs, things of what you do to position you as an authority. Now, we send that, then we wait, and then we check if they replied. If they have replied, you're in dialogue and email, and then you can book the meeting. If they haven't, we send no-show email 2. No-show email 2 is kind of like a final one. Like, hey John, we were supposed to have a meeting a week ago. You didn't show, and I assume that was due to you getting preoccupied. Let me know if you still want to do a call. Here's the link to schedule one. I wish you a great day. Something like that. You don't want to be pushy at this point. And then if they haven't replied, we enroll them back into the retargeting and nurture sequence. And that, my ladies and gentlemen, that is the B2B protocol. That's the spider web of it, the flowchart. Now, what I see is that most companies do not have a no-show system. They never have a retargeting. They might have a booking system, but they do not have the nurturing, the segment, the follow-up, the homework. Some people do resources, but they don't have the matrix for how to do it. No one really has that type of follow-up. A lot of companies have outbound, but they do in the wrong way. And I'm starting to see a lot of people try to do the inbound on LinkedIn specifically, but they're doing it, I'd say, at a 50% capacity. When you put all of these things together, all of the meetings that comes through the outbound, follow-up, inbound, but also retargeting from the resources, people know everything. Like, your authority is established. And I like to say this to everyone we talk to, and that is, you go from selling to taking orders. Because everyone knows what it is. Everyone understands what it is. Everyone believes and trusts in you as a company. It's more about investment and timing. And I've even had people say, like, this feels too easy. Now, this is the huge difference this system put in place actually does. And it has an impact on a lot of different levels. One, it makes your sales team perform better because the sales conversations are far warmer than if you were to really push outbound to book a meeting, or just do inbound directly to book a meeting. It's a completely different ballgame. And the reasons why is because I want to share this. And everyone needs to generate leads. There are tons of ways for you to do it. But you also need to build that trust. And this is one of the things that I showed you in the flowchart. And that was, you have your content that people engage with. That gives you the ability to score people. And by scoring, you can adjust the frequency of what people get, which will give them more content over time. And this builds the flywheel. This flywheel has the consequence of you building more trust, you establishing yourself more as an authority, and that makes it so that leads, when they're ready, they come to you and book a meeting. And also, since we have the trust and the scoring system, you can ping your sales team so that they can reach out at appropriate times instead of just reaching out unwarranted and unsolicited and at probably a bad time where there are no indications that they're interested. Most companies skip this entire thing. They try to go directly from generating leads to conversion at the bottom. because you can view this as the top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, or tof, or tofu, mofu, and bofu, depending on how you want to coin it. Everyone tries to skip middle of funnel. They don't have a proper system for it. This is what you need. Like, you can generate leads, yes. That could be as easy as reaching out and taking everyone that engages a response, everyone that you post online, and everyone that comments. But you need to nurture those leads. Like, if you have a lead gen agency hired now, or you are engaging with anyone for that, what happens to the leads that are generated? Like, do you have a system that can nurture them in the next year? Because if you don't, you're paying for 100 leads that will only turn into 3 to 5 clients, because it's only 3 to 5% that are ready at the current moment. So you're paying a premium. You're discharging the 95 to 97% that are not ready now, but will be that in the next 3 to 18 months. And that is why the nurture in the middle is so important. That is why this is important. That is also why you need to put these to resource, which then books, and everyone go into resource that then books, because the sales process and buying process of your audience isn't linear anymore. It's not a funnel. It's not that they start at the top and they go down and it becomes money down here. It's a loop. They need to see you countless times. They need to build awareness with you. They need to understand what you stand for. They need to believe in what you do. And that is why no one really sees great success when they start doing this, because they miss all of these foundational components. And this is where my final point and invite comes to you now, if you've stuck around now for 27 minutes or 37 minutes, and that is, we would love to give you kind of like an introduction to how this would work for your company, because it would work in different ways depending on what type of company you have, depending on audience, depending on your team size, if you have a sales team, not have a sales team. So down below this video, you will find a calendar where you can book a walkthrough with us, where we are actually going to give you, like, this is how it will work for your company. And you will go out of that call knowing more how you can take what I've now just shared and implement that in your company, so that you can do outbound if that's correct, how you can do the follow-up, how to do the inbound, how to stitch all of this together, so that you can actually build trust and longevity to your strategy. Because no company is built on short-term tactics. And if it's worth building, it takes time building. And this doesn't change. It's the fundamentals. And once you have the fundamentals in place, we can look at how we can enhance those with new technology. And that is one of the things that we've done. So if you want to learn more how this could be for your company, find a time in the calendar. Like, we would love to speak to you. It's no commitment, nothing like that. It's just find a time, book a call, and we will request you to send more information before the call. And we also reserve the right to, let's say, cancel those calls if we see that this is not an appropriate system for your company. But we would love to speak to you. So down below, there's a calendar. Go down there, click book a call, and we would love to speak to you. I hope this was useful. Again, my name is Harold. I'm the founder and CEO. You will also find the link to this flowchart. I'm going to leave all of the scribbles so that you can have those. And I wish you a great rest of your day. And you will get more and see us more around, because now you're in the system. So now we are here to provide you more value than anyone else. With that being said, have a great rest of your day, and we will speak to you soon.